Hello and welcome to Back to the Science. I'm Dr. Susan Oliver and I'm a scientist, and this is Cindy Oliver and she's a dog. So last week I did a post about Robert F. Kennedy Jr. promoting a playlist that I'd just created of the various videos that I'd made previously debunking his misinformation. The playlist included videos about Kennedy's multiple false claims about vaccines, his role in the Samoa measles outbreak that resulted in the deaths of 83 people who were mostly children, and his AIDS denialism. Now, as you'd expect, I got the usual anti-vax nonsense in the comments. But I also got some people suggesting that we should forgive his dangerous misinformation because he was going to make America healthy again by ending the obesity epidemic. Now, I'm not sure why you wouldn't just get someone who was going to eliminate obesity who didn't spread dangerous misinformation. After all, dying of a preventable childhood disease before you're old enough to get obese doesn't really make a lot of sense. But anyway, I thought I'd have a look at how he plans to end obesity. It just so happens that he's made a video where he explains how he's going to do it.
Today, I want to talk about the biggest myth of the national obesity epidemic. The biggest myth is that if you're obese or overweight, it's your fault. Today, 3/4 of American adults are obese or overweight, including 40% of American teenagers. Back when I was growing up, childhood obesity was almost unheard of. But you don't need statistics to know that something has changed. Look at the photographs of beaches or state fairs from the 1950s. Something has changed, and it isn't human nature. We haven't suddenly become lazy or gluttonous. What has changed is our food system, our diets, and the hormone-disrupting chemicals in our food, in our water, and our soil. We are being mass poisoned. Today, they tell you that you have obesity, like it was some kind of contagious disease. They treat it as if your body malfunctioned, and they give you a shot to control it. Or they make it about your lack of self-control. Well, that's an insult to anyone who has tried and struggled to lose weight. So what are they ignoring when they make it all about you and your body and your willpower and your character? And the solution is always a shot or a pill that somebody is going to cash in on. What they're ignoring is a food supply that's loaded with high fructose corn syrup and seed oils and hundreds of artificial additives and flavors and processed carbohydrates that don't exist in nature and that are banned in other countries. They ignore a skewed system of subsidies that make these unnatural, ultra-processed foods cheap. They ignore chemical contamination from pesticides that is wreaking havoc on our body.
Okay, so Kennedy seems to think that the way doctors treat obesity is by just giving people an injection. That's bollocks. Whilst GLP-1 drugs are now available as a treatment option for obesity, they are not a first-line therapy. Doctors always recommend lifestyle modification first, which is what they have always done. And by the way, the only reason GLP-1 drugs work is because you consume less food while taking them. They're not magic injections. People become overweight because they consume more calories than they expend. There is no other way, despite what some diet gurus and Kennedy claim. And there is no other way to lose weight other than consuming less calories than you expend. You can't get around the first law of thermodynamics. Your body can't store excess energy as fat if you're not consuming excess energy. And it just so happens that the average number of daily calories consumed by Americans has increased significantly since the 60s. And the average amount of energy that is expended daily has decreased over the same time period. So people are overweight because they are consuming more calories than they expend. Now, in his diatribe, he did mention some things that contribute to the calories in foods, and I will be covering that later. But he also mentioned a number of things that don't, like artificial colours and flavours. Now, just to be clear, I don't think artificial colours and flavours should be added to any foods, but removing them isn't going to help the obesity problem. In Australia and many other countries, artificial colours and flavours have already been removed from foods like Fruit Loops. But that doesn't mean they're now healthy. They're still loaded with sugar and low in fibre. In Australia, we have a health star rating to help people work out at a glance what foods are healthy, and Fruit Loops only have 2 out of 5 stars, although there is a reduced sugar version that has 2.5 stars, which is still not impressive. But you don't have to eat Fruit Loops for breakfast. There are lots of other options, like rolled oats, for instance, which not only have a 5-star rating, they're also heaps cheaper than Fruit Loops. But Kennedy does have some other ideas about how we can eliminate obesity. So let's take a look at them.
Now, let me tell you what we're going to do about it. We're going to change the subsidies so that everyone can afford safe and wholesome food.
Okay, cheaper, healthy food sounds good. But does that actually mean more people will eat it? Here's a bunch of extremely rich men on a private plane eating McDonald's. You may recognise a few of them. Now, these men can obviously afford to eat healthy food, but they are choosing not to. And as I've already pointed out with my rolled oats example, there are already some healthy options that are cheaper than less healthy alternatives. And it's also already affordable to get the recommended servings of fruit and vegetables every day, as this analysis by the US Department of Agriculture shows. But a greater variety of affordable options is definitely a good thing, as some types of fruit and vegetable aren't so cheap. In Australia, for instance, cherries are ridiculously expensive, which is a real shame because I love cherries.
We're going to get industry money out of government so that consumers and doctors can actually trust our agencies again.
I assume he's referring to the fees industry has to pay to get their products evaluated here. If he's not going to charge those fees, he's going to have to find another way of paying for it, like increasing taxes, for instance. No idea how that will help reduce obesity.
We're going to make school lunches nutritious again.
Making school lunches more nutritious is a great idea, which is why it was implemented over a decade ago by the Obama administration. And it absolutely was associated with improved dietary quality. Unfortunately, the policy was watered down somewhat during the last Trump administration, but hopefully Kennedy will reverse that this time around.
We're not going to force or coerce or shame anyone. We're going to lower the costs and lower the barriers and get rid of the perverse incentives and clean out the chemicals so that the American people won't be swimming upstream anymore through a soup of toxic substances just to be healthy.
In other words, he's not really going to address the obesity epidemic, but he will do a few minor things that might help a bit. Better than a slap in the face for a wet fish. Now, what about the high fructose corn syrup and seed oils that he mentioned at the beginning of the video? He doesn't elaborate on these in the video at all, but he does in other videos. So let's have a look.
It's high fructose corn syrup.
These other countries don't have that?
No, if you want to drink a Coke, drink a Mexican Coke, because they don't allow it down there.
Right. The US version of Coke made with high fructose corn syrup has 140 calories per 355 milliliter can. whereas the Mexican version made with cane sugar has 150 calories per 355 milliliter bottle. So, switching back to cane sugar from high fructose corn syrup is not going to help combat obesity. Switching to tap water will, though, and it's also more affordable. But he never suggested that. And for anyone who doesn't know, cane sugar is sucrose, which contains a combination of glucose and fructose, just like high fructose corn syrup. In the case of sucrose, the glucose and fructose molecules are joined by a glycosidic bond, which is cleaved by digestive enzymes to produce the free molecules. In the case of high fructose corn syrup, the molecules are already separate. Okay, what about seed oils?
President Trump was cooking at McDonald's the other day and giving people French fries. And people criticized me and they said, well, you know, he's out there giving fast food. And I said, I don't have anything against fast food. I'm against food that has seed oils. When I was a kid, McDonald's was made with tallow fat. That was good for you. Your body needs that. It makes you healthy. Why aren't we making it with tallow fat again?
Beef tallow is not lower in calories than seed oil. If anything, it's slightly higher. So switching back to cooking McDonald's fries in beef tallow will not reduce obesity. Choosing a smaller portion size, or better still, having a baked potato instead, will help though. But again, that's not something he's suggested. And while we're on seed oils, as with all fats, they are calorie dense. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to consume high quantities of them if your goal is to maintain a healthy weight. But a lot of people seem to think they have issues beyond that. So let's have a quick look at that. So the main negative claim made about seed oils seems to be that they cause inflammation. Essentially, that claim is bollocks. They looked at it here in this systematic review and meta-analysis, which included 30 randomised controlled trials. A number of different seed oils were investigated in the various randomised trials that were included, and they looked at their effect on various inflammatory markers. And generally, they found there was no effect. One possible exception was that very large increases in seed oil consumption may affect the level of a particular inflammatory marker known as C-reactive protein, but not other inflammatory markers, although the effect didn't reach statistical significance even for C-reactive protein. So it's not definite. And importantly, there was no increase in C-reactive protein with more modest increases in the consumption of seed oils. So some seed oils in your diet are okay, but you shouldn't be drinking them. Stick to water. Now, one more thing that's worth mentioning. A lot of people think that Robert Kennedy Jr. is an expert on health because he looks buff with his shirt off and can do push-ups and bench press a reasonable weight, etc., etc. So let's look at that.
I'm on an anti-aging protocol from my doctor that includes testosterone replacement, but I don't take any steroids. I don't take any anabolic steroids or anything like that.
Actually, testosterone is an anabolic steroid. It just happens to be one that is also naturally occurring in the human body. His body obviously isn't producing as much as he'd like, or maybe it's being used up by the brainworm, who knows? But he's getting a helping hand from Big Pharma. Why he isn't just getting his personal chef to make him fries cooked in tallow fat and importing Coca-Cola from Mexico, I don't know. Of course, taking testosterone to increase your muscle mass is one way to control body fat, as the more muscle mass you have, the more calories you burn, even at rest. But it's not without risks. And some people might even suggest that it's a bit hypocritical to be taking testosterone whilst criticising other people using pharmaceuticals to help control their weight. I'll leave it there. If you'd like to look further into the data I've presented, I provided links in the video's description. And please remember, this video is about the science, but you shouldn't take it as medical advice. For that, you speak to your medical practitioner. If you've got this far, thank you for listening. And if you've liked, shared, or commented on the video, double thank you, because that helps the algorithm and means that more people will see the video. And of course, thank you to everyone who has bought me a coffee or little Cindy a treat. We really appreciate your support. We will be continuing to make videos about the science in the future. So if you'd like to join the cool kids and stay informed, please hit the subscribe button. Thank you.